Welcome to Keystone Connect.
It's like
Both of those work.
Yeah.
A weekly podcast and video series connecting friends to faith, culture, and good vibes.
Good vibes.
I'm your host, Eric Hollis, and I'm here with a special guest. You may or may not know him.
Hey, guys.
Brady Nemmers.
I am in the house. Actually, I'm in the church. And you may notice Eric and I are 6 feet apart for safety purposes.
Yep. And Eric is also not one to typically talk about weather, but how many inches of snow do you think we got today?
It was pretty scary, 2 to 3 for sure.
2 to 3. And what was your first reaction when you woke up this morning and saw it?
Well, I didn't say anything, but my 9-year-old Colton did. He went to the window and put his forehead against the glass and went, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." Channeling Napoleon Dynamite. It was a great moment.
Yeah, I love Colton. That sounds very Colton-esque.
It was good.
I would say mine was more just confused. I was like, where am I? Seems odd, but we were talking about before, I guess this isn't the first time that snow has happened in Michigan or ice in the middle of April, so I guess I shouldn't be that surprised.
I think it happened a year ago. Tomorrow we had a snowstorm, and I know this because the Starbucks by my house opened up, and it was kind of a big deal for me, and I went to the grand opening celebration, and it was snowing. I remember that. It was a bit of a scar, but you know.
Scars remind us that the past is real.
Come on.
That's Papa Roach right
there. It is.
So, fun fact, speaking of songs, Brady and I are both former DJs. Mm-hmm. Brady, tell me a little bit about your DJ career.
Yeah, I started when I was in high school. I went to a dance, Forest Hill Central, represented, and it was after a basketball game, and the DJ was just straight terrible.
Yeah.
And so I found myself thinking, dude, a monkey could do this better. And then my second thought was, I could do this better. And I think maybe I should have had the thought in the other direction. But nonetheless, I went to the administration and convinced them to sign me, and I'd never done a dance in my whole life.
Signing you?
I sat for every dance for the next year, and that's how I got my money for my gear. And then, for about 15 years, it was proms and after game dances, which they don't do anymore, signs of the time.
So you had no credibility, and they just signed you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty much. And so I think I gave them a money back guarantee on the first one. But as I mentioned, it was not that hard to be better than the guys that they had. And I think I cut the price in half too, so they like that. Because it was like a fundraiser. So
nice. Yeah. For the kids.
Winning.
So we've DJ'd weddings, and I thought it would be good to talk about what are our favorite songs to DJ at a wedding, as well as what was the most popular one.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, what do you think?
I think for me, that's also in a category of songs I never want to hear again.
Yeah, it's true. I've heard them so many times.
And also songs that I continue to hear when I go bowling twice a year. So I would say Old Time Rock and Roll by Bob Seger, and I know if you're a fan, I'll just pray for you. I don't know. Yeah. And then Old Time Rock and Roll, so that was number 1. Number 2, Celebration by Kool and the Gang. Nice. Never have to hear that one again. And then Baby Got Back.
Nice.
And if you're there and you're like, I don't know what that is, I should check it out on Spotify. Don't worry about it. It's really okay.
Yeah.
And if you're under the age of 27, don't watch the YouTube video. So,
great.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm 27.
Are you?
So I can watch it. Perfect.
Yeah.
I probably won't, though.
You'll need to repent afterwards.
So I would say the most popular song when I'm DJ Money's is Shout by the Isley Brothers. Lots of audience participation, and then you gotta go, hey, the whole response.
What about Macarena? You read that one?
No. That's mainly on the list of songs not to play when I meet with clients, but.
That and the chicken dance?
Yes, that was what I do. See? We're on a wave.
If it's still happening at bowling alleys and roller rinks, probably not something you ever want to hear again.
Oh, it's good. And then the two that I like the most are All the Small Things by Blink-182, and we've talked about this, Mr. Brightside by The Killers is just still a
which is an enigma of a song. Yeah. I was I began to take my oldest sons to Michigan football games, and they were still singing Mr. Brightside, which came out in 1997, the year after I graduated. And so I remember going back in 97 and everyone was singing, and it just kept rolling.
Yep.
And actually on the big screen in the Michigan Stadium, the guy from The Killers tweeted at Michigan Stadium saying it's hard not to be a Wolverine fan when you guys give us so much love. So I don't know if that's true in other college football areas, but yeah, Mr. Brightside, it endures.
And they're like just jumping up like,
yeah.
Nice.
And that song's wholly inappropriate too, so my boys had to figure that out.
Is it? I haven't even listened to the lyrics.
Yeah, but we all like the beat.
Yeah. It's good. It's catchy. So now that we've talked about all essential music, I want to hear from you in regards to what was it like this past weekend? I mean, you've been in ministry for a while now, and this is probably the weirdest and craziest.
Yeah, there was like a support group of pastors texting one another on Sunday morning because we were all just really feeling like we were in a Twilight Zone episode. It was so weird not to go to church and not to have, people gather. And actually on Sunday, I was here, but it was just weird. Everything just felt different. And then we didn't go to Grandma's for lunch. That was weird. We did an Easter egg hunt with the boys in our yard, which they pointed out that I really am bad at hiding eggs, to which I responded, give me a break, there's a coronavirus. And then, so it was just a very different sort of day. You've got Grandma on the Zoom call instead of Grandma live, and it was okay. It was still special in its own way. It is one we will never forget.
That's true. Well, this is the most excited I've been about our podcast yet. We're going to be talking through some of the top memes of the recent month. We're going to share some good news, and one story in particular that's been my favorite so far, about a living legend out in San Francisco. Brady's going to talk about how we can just not drive each other nuts and some practical steps with that. And of course, we're going to end with the one and only recommendation roundup. So let's get to it. So Brady, since you're so good at explaining things, I thought you could kind of explain some of these memes that we're going through. So some of them have pictures and some of them we'll just talk through because some of these texts are just really funny. So I want to hear your quarantine nickname. So your quarantine nickname is how you feel right now, plus the last thing you ate out of the cupboard. And this guy that was writing the tweet, Ellen Gale, said, you can call me Angry Chili Mango. So I don't know what chili mango he ate, but he was angry before he ate it.
I think that's a Doritos flavor. It's a new one.
Probably.
Yeah, could be.
So what would be your quarantine nickname?
My quarantine nickname would be Hypercaffeinated Hummus.
Hypercaffeinated hummus.
Because I had my afternoon fix, and I had some hummus.
Nice. Mine would be Content Protein Bar. Because I was kind of cooped up all day, and then being able to kind of come in here, I'm content now. I feel like I'm talking about some good news, getting some laughs and good vibes. I'm content, and I just had one of those Aldi protein bars. One of the
Which are straight terrible.
Yeah, they are.
It's almost like medicine. You're like, I'm going to have this, and maybe I'll feel better later. You don't really feel better.
Granted, we had like nothing else in the cabinet. We needed to go shopping. So
Aldi should probably steer clear of protein bars.
So this next one is probably my favorite of all the memes that we're going to be mentioning. It brings up the social distancing champion of the Bible.
Oh, yes.
And if you could guess, his name is Zacchaeus.
A wee little man.
A wee little man. So can we describe for our listeners here that can't see this amazing picture of Zacchaeus, kind of what's going down?
Yeah, sure. You got Zacchaeus in the sycamore fig tree. He's approximately a third the size of Jesus based on the perspective. And then, but he's definitely at least 6 feet apart from Jesus, whose head is glowing and surrounded by a halo, but his beard game is strong. So and then the disciples that are behind him look like they're in their mid-80s, which is not historically accurate whatsoever.
Oh, I just love how small and old Zacchaeus looks. And what's that thing in the background that's going on? Is that like a mountain?
I have no idea. That's really weird.
The way he's positioned in the tree too.
You're not really. He's like he's floating in the tree. That's not.
All right. Our next one. No, this is called the Back Row Baptist.
Oh, this is awesome. This is actually, this is the opposite of Keystone. In this picture, you have people in a living room watching a church service on a television, but the couches are in the third row or the back row instead of the front row at Keystone. And this is actually, maybe you've never known this, but the reason that we put couches in the front is because if we don't put couches in the front, no one will sit in the front. And I
did not know that.
That's actually why it happened.
Huh.
So we kind of upgraded. So normally, like at a concert, everyone wants to get really close to the famous person. And at church, it's the opposite of that. Well, and we have no famous people, so it's just.
I was going to say, is that just a plug for you?
No. Well, apparently not, because no one wants to be near me. And so it actually, if we were to just we could probably still meet at church during the lockdown as long as we just put normal seats in the front row, because at least for me, no one would be within like 12 feet.
Fair.
So that's
fair.
good. So yeah, Back Row Baptist. That's pretty
Speaking
fun.
of which, we were talking a little bit, and Randy brought this up at our staff meeting. How long has it been that you've been at Keystone now?
Yeah, so I'm in the 7th year.
Seventh year.
So Randy was saying that this past Tuesday was the 7-year anniversary. So 7 years ago on that, whatever that date was on Tuesday, I taught at Keystone for the first time.
Wow. And that was the week after Easter?
No.
Or a couple weeks after, maybe?
I don't remember.
This Easter was late.
Yeah.
Who knows? All right, this one's good. So there's this big kind of, there's an option that like you really don't want to do, or draw 25 from Uno. And this one's been going around, and this one's a little coronavirus related.
Indeed. So you got the card and it says cough in public due to allergies or draw 25. Because if you, of course right now, if you're at a store and you know you're at your once a week, whatever you got to do, or you're getting some more hummus, chili mango, Doritos, whatever you got, and somebody coughs, it's literally like watching the sea part when the Israelites walk through on dry ground, because people just give you a wide berth. Sarah actually mentioned to me, she said now she loves it, shopping during this time, because if she's at Target and there's one of something left that she needs, she'll just start coughing and walk towards the item, and everyone else just gets out of the way. So she's thinking this is a very efficient way to shop.
Does she currently have a cough, or she's faking it?
No, she fakes it.
She fakes it.
Yeah.
Okay. That works.
Yeah.
Just a little recommendation there for you.
Yeah.
This one's great.
From the podcast.
So social distancing baptism.
Oh yeah, this is great. So you got a kid here in their living room being held by the dad under the arms. A little girl, could be a little boy. I think it's a girl.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just on the dress.
And she looks like a ghost because she can't see her feet. She's kind of like hanging down. And then there's a priest holding a super soaker, ready to shoot the child and baptize the child. And this is from At Best Christian Memes, which is a thing.
Yeah, right. There's a one called Edgy Christian Memes. That's a thing. I think he's just in his socks too. I don't think he's wearing shoes.
No, that dude is definitely. They're both in their socks, and the mom is just laughing.
And quick aside here, when they have
are they
the
living
collar,
in a castle? Hold on, they lived in a castle. Look at that trim. The door trim is very.
I don't know, but there's a dehumidifier in there, so it's balancing the water from the baptism.
Yeah.
Random aside, when the priests have that little collar inside there, does that mean that they're either? Because my dad used to wear one. He's a Lutheran pastor. Does that mean they're Lutheran or Catholic specifically, or is it various denominations?
It's just different traditions, different streams. Some will do that, and it's mainly so they can be recognized out in public.
Okay.
But then if you cut somebody off in traffic, it doesn't go well. I try to fly incognito. No fish on my car.
You do like roll back in there and everything. The aviators on.
That's right.
All right, so this is another form of social distance baptism that we actually experienced at our kind of cookout this past, when was that, fall?
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time in that big tub there.
Yeah, so what you're looking at is a dunk tank here. So the idea is you want to get baptized during quarantine, we can set up the dunk tank, we'll sit at a safe distance, and then we'll just throw balls at them.
Which, that would not go well if that's like a really young infant.
No, I'd be
It's
more,
adult,
that's more, we're in immersion baptism territory there, so that's a pretty good one too. I like that one.
So this one is just kind of a funny thought of things that used to distract me from church.
I can't relate to this. I'm never distracted in church. Riveting.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's like the little icons from your apps for Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, and it says things that used to distract me, and now how I go to church is like Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, which is actually very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody told me, they sent me an email, they said they really like the Easter talk and they liked it better when they listened to it at 1.5 times speed. I was trying to feel that. So I sound a little bit like a chipmunk, but they get the information that much faster, which made me feel like I needed more coffee, and then I could have just done that naturally.
See, but sometimes you need that space to like discern. You need some of that like just time.
Yeah.
When you say certain things to think about it. Yeah. But it does get you through quicker. So, people with the gift of hospitality right now, that want to host and have people over, what are they going through?
Yeah, it's severe angst. This is an extrovert's worst nightmare. Yeah. And that's what you see here. This guy is just really, really struggling in his soul. But I mean, honestly, if you're an introvert, you're living your best life right now, right? Because like no one will touch you, and everyone stays away from you. Yeah. And they talk to you, but they don't want to like shake your hand, hold your hand, give you a hug, even like a proper awkward side hug. Nothing. So yeah, but if you're an extrovert, These are challenging.
Well, and the introverts don't have to worry about people being like, oh, you're not being outgoing enough, you're not coming out. It's just like, I'm supposed to stay at home, I'm playing it safe.
That's right. That's right.
So this one we may or may not take out, I'm not sure. This one might be a little too edgy, but I think it's really funny. So.
That's like an Easter one.
Yeah. So what is it?
So it's Jesus sitting with this is really weird. It's like all the children of the world, you have every different race represented, which is cool. Jesus looks like a white guy, which he wasn't, with like Weird Al hair and a good beard. And then there's this kid with red hair that's sitting in his lap. It looks like Wilson, except for girl, my son Wilson. And then you have like kids dressed up like, I don't know what they're dressed up like.
Yeah,
Jesus says, so when I was all like, Mom, chill out, I'll be back like 3 days tops. Which, I mean, Jesus is recorded as saying he'd be back in 3 days, but, you know, I don't know. This one probably.
Did he say that to Mary in those times? I feel like he typically said
Mary,
it to the disciples.
but Mary was, Mary, his mom, that's true.
Yeah.
I think she probably got wind of it.
His tone is like super bro-like here. So then I was all like, Mom, chill out.
Yeah.
Be back in like 3 days tops.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of like extending.
This must have been coming out for last week, but
yeah.
It's all good.
And that concludes our memes, Brady. I thought you did really well.
Hey.
You're good at describing things.
Yeah.
So.
Lots of practice.
Yep. Hey, since you just had to focus, like really focus on how to explain some of these thought-provoking memes, I'm going to give you a little break and get into some good memes.
Sounds good.
Does that work?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I don't know if you heard, but the founder of Twitter and the Square payment platform, Jack Dorsey, has announced that he is donating $1 billion to COVID-19 response and relief efforts.
It's awesome.
This financial commitment represents a whopping 28% of Dorsey's net worth.
He'll make more.
Yeah, he will. But it made me think, that was, like, you've heard things about celebrities, but that's a huge chunk.
Oh, yeah.
That was cool to see. And it kind of reminded me of, I think it was around a month ago, I saw this stat that was just mind-blowing. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has saved 122 million lives.
Wow.
Yeah. So just to get some perspective, I looked up the population of California, and can you guess the population of California? Just off the top of your head.
128 million.
No, it's 39.51 million.
Not even close.
In California.
All right. That's
And
pretty cool.
100, so that's essentially 4 Californias.
Or a third of the population of the United States.
Yeah.
So.
Wild. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's claim is that all lives have equal value. We are impatient optimists working to reduce inequity. That's a pretty fun phrase there. Impatient optimists.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before. And it's focused on 3 verticals: health, development, and growth, always with a global vision and targeted on the most depressed and less developed areas of the world. So when I saw that, I was like, man, that just is pretty inspiring, that here's a guy that makes so much money and gives so much back, and he's really smart about doing it too.
Oh yeah, he's good. There's a thing on Netflix called Inside Bill's Brain. Well worth a watch.
I haven't heard of
About
that.
Bill Gates.
Perfect. For our next story, Brady, I want you to rate my pun headline 1 to 10 and potentially come up with a different one if you have one.
All right.
You up for the task?
Yeah.
So, headline is, solar panel driveway panels might soon be the next hot commodity. 1 to 10. 10 being good.
I'm going to give that like a 1.
1?
I didn't like that one at all. I actually, when we were practicing for this, which is amazing, we practiced. You're like, you practice this? It doesn't feel practiced. But we did. Anyway, I had to have it explained to me because in my experience, solar panels are not hot. But then I thought, I've never actually put my hand on a solar panel when it was generating electricity.
Yeah.
Which is probably why I would go with 1.
Okay. Well, part of the practice for this too is that Brady went on a couple, nostalgic 90s band or DJ rants, and it was a great educational session in that sense too.
Padawan learner.
So solar panel driveways may soon be powering all our households with clean electricity thanks to a Budapest-based startup. For the last 5 years, Pladio Solar has been developing new ways of implementing solar technology into urban spaces. And one of their latest developments is a residential solar panel driveway made out of recycled plastic bottles. According to a video that was published by the company last week, the solar system is the first to generate power from the pavement of a residential household.
It would make sense to me to use a roof before I would use something I drive on.
Yep.
Just saying.
Well, who knows what was driving their decisions. Not to say.
Again.
That was not practice.
No, well, clearly. It would have been cut.
Each Pladio solar paver is made, and I'm gonna need some help from a fellow nerd.
All right,
nerd
so this is harkening back to my training in chemistry. It's made from 400 polyethylene terephthalate bottles,
also known as
PET.
bottles, one of the most common forms of consumer plastic. Compressed into pavers, the material becomes more durable than concrete while still being non-slip and sustainable.
Which meets my objection about the weight of cars.
Yep. The system can either be used to generate electricity for a residential household or power an electric car. According to the company's website, a 20 square meter Pladio driveway system has the capacity to cover yearly energy consumption of an average household.
If you wanted to take this to 11, what you would do, have you seen the induction charging thing for the phones now? I have this little
where you
round
just set it
pad.
down?
Yeah, you set it, it charges. What if you just drove your car onto the driveway and it charged through the tires? That would be sweet. I don't think that's possible because I don't think electricity is conducted in rubber.
You could tell Pladio about it.
I might send them an email.
Yep. I'm sure they'd love that.
Suggestion.
Yeah. The company is now offering resale opportunities and installation quotes for their driveway systems available in brown, blue, red, and green. What color would you get? Brown, blue, red, and green.
Blue would be weird.
Yeah. It'd be edgy. Okay, so our third one is probably my favorite story here. A Guardian officer has saved over 200 people from jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Is that a pun?
No, it's not. It's just the headline. I don't come up with all the headlines.
That doesn't seem like a pun.
Right. But the video in which they post is a really good kind of pun. It's in the link. Let me pull it up right here just to cue it in. It is called The Bridge Between Suicide and Life.
There we go.
And it's his TED Talk. So I'll include the link in our YouTube description as well if you want to kind of see him talk. It's got like 3 million views, so it's got to be good. So, it's a police officer's job to protect and serve, but Kevin Briggs never thought that his job would lead him to save over 200 people from committing suicide. Briggs has been dubbed the Guardian of the Golden Gate Bridge because of his awe-inspiring history of talking people down from the edge of the historic landmark. The Golden Gate Bridge is one of the world's most notorious spots for suicide attempts. Briggs, who's a California Highway Patrol officer, was first stationed on the bridge in 1994, but he says that he had never been trained on how to handle suicidal people. As he encountered more and more distraught individuals, however, he began to pick up more and more strategies on how he could talk to them efficiently. Whenever he successfully managed to coax, is that the word, coax? Someone off the ledge, he would ask them about which parts of his approach were helpful and which ones weren't. I think my approach right from the start was wrong, Briggs told CBC in an interview. Just to walk right up to those folks and start talking with them. Now what I do is I stand back and I'll just introduce myself. I'll say, "Hi, I'm Kevin," or "I'm Kevin with Highway Patrol. Is it okay? Is it all right if I come up and speak with you for a bit?" I want to get their permission and empower them. One of his most notable encounters was with a man named Kevin Berthia back in 2005. At the time, Berthia was a 22-year-old who was drowning in medical bills from caring for his prematurely born infant daughter. In the midst of his depression, Berthia climbed onto the edge of the bridge and prepared to take his own life. Then he was approached by Briggs. Briggs later said that the man seemed angry with him, but in an interview with NPR, Berthia told him otherwise. "I was just mad at myself for being in that situation and I was embarrassed," Berthia said. "But somehow, the compassion in your voice is what allowed me to kind of let my guard down enough for us to have a conversation. We talked for 92 minutes about everything that I was dealing with. My daughter, her first birthday was the next month, and you made me see that if nothing else, I need to live for her." Out of all of Briggs' encounters on the bridge, Berthia is one of the only people who he has stayed in contact with over the years. Briggs retired from the CHP in 2013, but he now works in suicide prevention and mental health awareness. Sometimes Berthia even joins him for speaking events. On top of all this, Briggs hopes that his legacy on the Golden Gate Bridge will inspire other people to take depression more seriously. whether it's in themselves or their loved ones. It takes a lot of courage to be over that rail, Briggs told CBC. It takes a lot of courage, but it also takes a lot of courage to come back and face the reality that is with them right now. But there is a brighter side to this, and it can happen. And it might take a long time and a lot of work. But life is beautiful, and you know, it is worth living. Pretty inspiring story.
Pretty good guy, yeah.
It's kind of wild how, he signed up to be an officer, but he ended up figuring out how to be like a really efficient counselor. It's kind of a little similar to how we in this time and a lot of different people are picking up different skills and just needing to learn to roll with it in whatever transition their work or job gives them. And so what he was saying about, I felt like could kind of relate to us because I live with 5 guys currently, and I feel like we're all driving each other kind of nuts, and we all just need a breath of fresh air, but we can't necessarily. We can get outside, but for the most part, we're stuck with each other. How can we practically, not from like necessarily a level of treading around each other, but how can we embrace this conversation in regards to our faith and how we're called to love each other in such tight quarters?
I think you're exactly right. So once again, that takes me back to the Last Supper. We go there a lot around here because it's where everything changed for Jesus' first followers. He gave them a new command that sort of was different than everything they had been commanded to do before. He says, I want you to love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. And in the original Greek language, the type of love that Jesus points to is called agape love. And agape love is a love of the will. It isn't a feeling. It's a verb. It's an action. It moves towards the other person with grace. And then if you were to say, well, what does that look like in the context of what we're in right now? I would point you to Paul's letter to the Corinthians that we always read at weddings.
Yeah.
The love is patient. Agape love is patient and it's kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It's not proud. It's not self-seeking. It keeps no record of wrongs. And you start to think, like, if I actually engage these people who are driving me nuts with that sort of love, that could change the emotional environment of my home. And that's Jesus' point. Not only that we should love one another that way, but also we should lead in that love and not wait for others to become worthy of that love.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I really like kind of how that ties in with what we were saying last week too, of like, it's okay to have these feelings of frustration, of kind of being annoyed. Like, we shouldn't get mad at ourselves for feeling that way, but we need to continue to ask ourselves what you say a lot: what does love require of me in this moment right now? And the love that Jesus modeled for his disciples was love that they didn't deserve. So maybe someone is really inconveniencing you or making you mad. What does love require of you in that moment? And it's really hard. I think a lot of people talk about the gospel being incredibly simple, but just incredibly radical. And sometimes loving radically is really difficult.
Absolutely.
But just taking it step by step. What does love require of me right now in this moment? Kind of having some wisdom within those moments that you can just, boom, react really quickly with your feelings. We're going to conclude with our recommendation roundup here. Some hot recs for you. So what I have been listening to about every day is a 10-minute podcast. It's called Relevant Daily.
Okay.
Do you listen to any of those, though?
I have in the past.
So the main thing is it's an intersection of faith and culture. So a little similar to this, but it's just 10 minutes every day with some news and some updates in the faith community that I've really enjoyed. It feels like a breath of fresh air when I hear it. And just 10 minutes, you can follow it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify as well. Highly recommend that. A book of the Bible that I've actually been in, and I'm wondering if you can expand on this a little bit, Brady. I've really appreciated the book of Psalms in this season.
Yeah.
And how David kind of just brings his whole heart, is really honest. He's lamenting, he's fearful, he's joyful, and engaging with the Psalms in a new way.
Yeah, I mean, the Psalms, that's the songbook of ancient Israel. And one of the things, the name Israel literally means one who wrestles with God. And so there is this stream in the ancient Jewish tradition of just being wide open with whatever you're feeling for God. And so for thousands of years, Jews and Christians have gone to the Psalms when they didn't know what to pray. And through David or some of the other authors, they've found language to sort of articulate what they're feeling inside. So it's a fantastic exercise during a time like this, to just enter a psalm and sort of enter that space emotionally and see if it resonates with where you're at. And if it does, to pray it, or even if you're creative, you could try singing it.
That's great.
Yeah, it's
Write it out, whatever helps you kind of digest it. I know that I have been writing out just certain psalms and certain verses that really stick out to me. It's been very helpful for me during this time. Music-wise, there's a lot of artists that are getting pretty creative. So Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors, they have been doing what they call kitchen covers. So if you go to their Instagram at Drew Holcomb, they've been doing stuff from Adele to Johnny Cash to re-singing kind of these folky lullabies that they would sing every night. Drew and his wife Ellie are doing those covers just right literally like on their, she's like sitting on their countertop sometimes, and those are really cool to check out. And you're just recently joined Instagram.
I am live on Instagram.
Have you been active at all?
I've been somewhat active. We surged and then we sort of have rolled off. We flattened the curve a little bit, but yeah, it could happen.
Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors, a couple of weeks ago actually, they did a live concert from their house, and part of the kind of optional tips went to Music Cares, which does preventative, recovery, and emergency assistance to safeguard the well-being of music people. Because, you know, they're going to book all these shows and relying on certain income. So that was cool that they did that gesture as well. And I was looking at NeedToBreathe Instagram recently, and their lead singer came out with an Easter song where he was just playing his electric guitar. So I think that was his most recent post. He might have put something else out there. So some artists are getting creative and doing some cool things on Instagram. Drew Holcomb is the one I mentioned, as well as NeedToBreathe. Then there's, I'll put the link in the bio as well, of King and Country did a concert where they sang to certain people that were going through a tough time. So there was actually a couple that wanted to get married, and they talked with them a little bit, and they said, hey, this song's for you, and sang to them, and it was really cool. I was crying because that's something that's close to home to me right now. We're trying to figure out, me and Tara, what we're gonna do, but really, really thought that was cool, and I'll put that information in the bio as well. So we'll conclude with one of my favorite quotes. Have you heard of Jimmy V before, Brady? Yes. This is probably
legendary Jimmy V.
Yeah, this used to be, I printed in color and I cut it out and put it right near my desk.
There you go.
If you laugh, you think, and you cry, that's a full day. That's a heck of a day. You do that 7 days a week, you're gonna have something special.
There it is.
And I'll put the link to the Jimmy V speech in our description as well, because I needed to watch it during this time. And it's a great reminder. Laughing, thinking, that's what we want to do here. And there's a lot of pain and a lot of fear out there. And so there's a lot of people crying, and it's important to, in certain situations, kind of enter into that space with people and just know that this is a really tough time. If you like what you're seeing or listening to, click subscribe so you can be notified right when we come out with some new episodes. So you'll just get an email from YouTube right when the next one drops. We'll typically come out with these episodes on Saturday. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week. All the links are in the bottom. Any parting words, Brady?
Grace and peace, friends.
Grace and peace. Grace and peace.